Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. Match day, Stamford Bridge, Chelsea versus Everton. Everton, I think they've only won once, and that was against Burnley. So it's not that, it's quite difficult to beat Burnley apparently, if you're Chelsea Football Club that is. But Everton, one win, and I think it's something like 18 or 19 games, which is pretty much atrocious to be fair. They had a decent start to the season. And it's they've put themselves in a relegation battle. There's been a lot of off-the-field issues, such as point deductions that they've had to deal with. But as the season's gone on, it's kind of just fizzled out into nothing. And where Chelsea, we've kind of been going all season that we might be fizzing into something, and then we keep fizzling out into nothing. And I'm hoping that off the back of that Sheffield United performance, not necessarily just the result, but more importantly, the performance at Bramall Lane last week was so poor that we have to see a bounce back tonight. We have got some injuries, shock horror, to worry about. There are new injuries. Enzo, who, to be quite honest, I think he's been playing so much football that I'm not surprised that he's finally injured, if that makes sense. Obviously, we're not happy about it. And Enzo's going to be out for this game. Axel Disasi is also out for this game, amongst all of the other injuries that Chelsea have had to deal with. So when we think about that midfield, there's going to have to be some, I don't really know, is this going to work? Is this going to be good that we're going to have to deal with here? So I've built a Chelsea starting 11. We will never have seen this starting 11 before, so this is a brand new one. And I think I've gone with what could be the best out of a situation where you look at the bench tonight and you're thinking, if these lot don't want this, if we're not playing very well, Everton are going to get their second win in 20 matches at Stamford Bridge. Because you look at the bench and you're like, I don't know about this one. There's a big conversation potentially about Cesare Casadei. And I want to speak about him a little bit here because I've not put Casadei in my starting 11 simply because I just don't think Pochettino's going to do it. But what I don't understand, and let me know about this in the comments if you think you know the answer to this. Chelsea recall Casadei from Leicester. He was having a good season, not setting the world on fire, but looking good for Leicester, starting to come into his own. And since he's arrived back at Chelsea, he's not even played 20 minutes of football, and we are bang in the middle of April. I don't understand what the whole point in this was. Now that Enzo is injured, maybe that changes today. Maybe that changes if Enzo stays injured, which, as we know with Chelsea players these days, if they get injured, they're probably going to be out for a while. Or they're probably going to get injured again straight away because we have got a nonsense medical team at Cobham, at Stamford Bridge. They don't really know what is going on game by game, week by week. So Chelsea here, for me, unfortunately, I'm saying it with a smile on my face because, look, I don't want to be negative. And I'm hoping we win this game. I really do. I hope that we can bring up the performances that we've seen quite often in games under the lights at Stamford Bridge. We've been good at home. We're not losing matches at home the way that we were earlier this season. We're on a decent run at Stamford Bridge. But the fact that Everton have got themselves into a relegation battle, including that point deduction and whatever, Everton need a result here, which is why, with the way that we have seen Chelsea crumble under pressure and crumble when we are put under pressure by oppositions, that is where Chelsea struggle the most. It's about being up for it, understanding that there is an urgency now. If Chelsea want to get into European football next season, if we keep on seeing performances like we saw at Sheffield United where there's no urgency, no one out there seems to really bother or care, then the conspiracy theory about do we really want to get into Europe will actually start to gather louder voices. Because to be honest, as much as I don't genuinely believe it, the more that I see, how can Chelsea players playing for Chelsea Football Club just not look like they give a shit when they're out there? The more I see it, the more I start to wonder what is being said behind the scenes. But I'm not going to fuel that agenda, not going to fuel that fire today, because I fully expect Chelsea, having seen Newcastle smash Spurs at the weekend, that was impressive. But Man United drawing 2-2 at Bournemouth, they were awful. I watched that game, it was atrocious. West Ham dropping points as well. Chelsea have got these games in hand, right? If we win them, we're talking about Europe next season. We're talking about some outrageously interesting visits to random European countries and cities in the Conference League. The only European trophy that Chelsea haven't bloody won. So we want to get in it. We want to win it. I don't want to hear any of this about, we might not be able to... FFP again, it comes back to that same line. But it's okay, because we're selling hotels right now to Blueco. Another little loophole found by Chelsea Football Club that was in the news this weekend. But without any further ado, I'm going to build my Chelsea starting 11 now that I think should have enough, despite being threadbare and paper thin, to get a result at Stamford Bridge at home to Everton tonight. Make sure you're subscribed to the George Benson Football channel and hit the like button on this video if you agree with my starting 11. And also, stay tuned straight after the game tonight. 6 things we learned will be in your sub box. We start in goal with Petrovic. I was starting to question a little bit. Petrovic was not good in the Burnley game. I don't think he was good in the Sheffield United game either. I think he can absolutely do something about both of the goals that Sheffield United scored. However, as has been the case too often this season for Chelsea, even if a player's not in form, we've either got to pick them because of injuries or the player that could potentially replace him just isn't very good. And in this case, it's very much that. Petrovic might not be in the best form. We're conceding loads of goals, but he's still better than Sanchez, in my opinion. We move into a Chelsea back four that is slightly concerning, but also here I think there is enough stability to get the job done. Malo Gusto at right back, one of the first names on the Chelsea team sheet right now, if he is indeed fit. Next to him, Trevor Chalobah and Thiago Silva with Marc Cucurella as the Chelsea left back. Ben Chilwell may potentially be back tonight. And to be quite honest, I think he's been so poor this season that I can't actually justify taking Cucurella out the team. Cucurella has also not been great. I think there are sometimes, and too often, his defensive capabilities come into serious question. He overcommits, and then players, speedy wingers, can get round the back of him, and before he's even got himself back goal side, we've conceded a goal. So I think in terms of individual errors, there is an individual error in Cucurella, but right now we let Lewis Hall go to Newcastle, which now that they will definitely finish above 14th, Newcastle are obligated to buy Lewis Hall. So that's a sale that will be going through. We've got Ben Chilwell maybe there. Do I want to see Ben back in the side? Realistically, no. And I never thought there would be a point during my Chelsea YouTube life where I would literally sit here and say to you, Marc Cucurella at left back over Ben Chilwell. But it's genuinely got to that point now as I smack the microphone on my wrist. Moving into a midfield three that is a little bit worrying. And that is why there is definitely a case to be made here for Cesare Casadei. We could potentially see a midfield three of Gallagher, Caicedo, and Kane Chukwuemeka. I think Khan's absolutely deserves more minutes. I think he's creative. I think he makes things happen. I think if you look back to that Man United game 10 days ago now, which feels like a bloody long time ago because we haven't seen Chelsea play for over a week, Khan's is the one who takes the shot. He makes the gamble, which leads to the corner that Enzo then takes to give it to Palmer to put it in the back of the net. So Chelsea needs someone like that. Chelsea needs someone who isn't so predictable, loves to get forward. I think Gallagher is that 10 or advanced state, whatever it might line up as. It's not always been fruitful. I think Gallagher's had a good season overall, but once again, there are flaws going forward. Caicedo, he's got to play this one, hasn't he? Like, Enzo's out. It's got to be Caicedo in there. When we look at the bench, which we'll see in a moment when I've put the forwards that I think are going to start this game today, to be honest, if Pochettino's not been picking Casadei, it doesn't make sense to me right now if Chukwuemeka, who actually had a really good start to the season, has been coming on at the end of matches recently. If he doesn't get his opportunity to start now, then when is he ever going to play? So for that reason, it's a Gallagher, Carnes, Caicedo, midfield three, with a front three, and Raheem Sterling potentially isn't available tonight, which, not going to lie to you, I don't want him to wish him any ill feeling or any illness or whatever. But I'm happy that he might not be available for selection because I don't think he's very good at the moment. So, Cole Palmer, Nicholas Jackson, and Mudryk. I need to see Mudryk back in the side. And I think the difficult thing is that Noni obviously scoring in that Sheffield United game. But then it's not necessarily for me about like, well, if you score, meritocracy. We've got to look at the patterns of Mauricio Pochettino. Understand that there's been many a confusing time. But I think, I personally want to see Mudryk start over Noni Madueke and let Noni be that influential player off of the bench. Be that on the right side or the left side. Cole Palmer's got to stay on. If Chelsea are winning 1-0, 2-1 against Everton and Cole Palmer comes off today, I'm rioting. All right? If we see anything like the capitulation that we saw at the end against Sheffield United tonight, patience is so thin right now. I stick by what I said after the Sheffield United game. I think there's definitely a world where we could have acted. There's been enough bad results. There's been enough going on to suggest that Pochettino is done. But that being said, I want us to win. I want to see him turn it around. And I do believe there is a world where that happens because there are good footballers at this club. There's a lot of average ones. Don't get me wrong. When it comes to the word team, which is the last video that I was talking about here on this channel, I'm talking about Chelsea not being a team. We're really not a team. And it's more difficult to play like a team when you keep getting new injuries added onto that massive list of bloody injuries. So, our backs are against the wall. It's a threadbare squad. It's a threadbare side. We might have 3 goalies on the bench tonight, and one of them might have to play right back. You never know. But I do think we can get a result here. Games at Stamford Bridge. All right, I'm going to come out with another wacky one here because not necessarily that wacky, but like there's been so many goals in games recently. And I think it's the same again. And I think Chelsea win tonight 3-2 at home to Everton. Nicholas Jackson scores tonight. I'm letting you guys know that one right now. Chelsea win 3-2. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. As I said earlier in the video, make sure you subscribe to the George Benson football channel so that you don't miss 6 things we learn, my post-match review series after every Chelsea game. Come on, you Blues.